staff and students of the University of Zimbabwe, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to also introduce our MC in sign language, Mr. Aaron Chikuni. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 2022 Research, Innovation and Industrialization Week, whose theme this year is University of Zimbabwe, Actualization of Research, Innovation, Industrialization Ecosystem Model for Zimbabwe's Economic Development. This is day 4 of our huge event, very exciting proceedings, presentations, exhibitions. Honorable Minister, what I have seen, what I have heard is a clear demonstration of the university's intentionality and consistency in debunking Education 3.0. I'm sure those that have toured our exhibits, you have followed the proceedings since Monday, you will agree with me that Education 3.0 is gone. Just on that note, I want us to put our hands together for our Minister and our Vice Chancellor. Honorable Minister, without any further ado, allow me to kindly invite our Vice Chancellor to come and give us his welcome remarks. Let's put our hands together as the VC comes through.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, our Acting Registrar, Dr. Nyaraz Madambi. Allow me to recognize you, our guest of honor, our esteemed Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, here representing our Honorable Minister, Honorable Siambi Siambi. Honorable Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Professor Dr. Amon Norwina. Allow me to recognize you, sir. Our Deputy Minister for Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Honorable Kindness Paraza. Allow me to recognize you, sir. I want also to recognize the Executive Director for Research and Innovation for the University of Zimbabwe, who is our host today. Allow me in absentia to recognize our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Professor Fanny Otagwira, who is in absentia, who is engaged in another assignment. Permanent Secretary in the allow me to recognize the Chief Executive Officer for the Zimbabwe Council of Higher Education, Professor Jimbo. Our Vice Chairman of Council, Mrs. Chasi, and members of Council here present. The Pro-Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, Acting Professor Chipoch Kanda, the Librarian, Dr. Chikonzo, the BESA, Mr. Gamin, the Deans of Faculties here present, and senior government officials here present, the professors, exhibitors, our esteemed guests and partners from industry and commerce, and our esteemed constituents, students who are here, members of the media, chairpersons of departments, our sponsors who are here with us, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. I will not want to take much of your time after we have started off with the exhibits. So we would have welcomed you already as we were moving and seeing the exhibitions where we have been just now. But guest of honor and our Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, allow me to still say welcome to the University of Zimbabwe and welcome to this particular ceremony. We are very honored to have our 3 different ministries coming to the University of Zimbabwe to witness what we are doing. It's not something that we take for granted. It says a lot about the visionary leadership of our Chancellor and President of the Republic of Zimbabwe in giving us a clarity about vision. And it says a lot about our champion, our Honorable Minister, here present, Professor Dr. Amon Mukwira, in championing and guiding us in a way that would make it relevant for our guests of honor to come through. That would make it relevant for the other ministries to be rallying behind us. And I would want to say thank you very much and most welcome. I would also want to say to our partners, we have had more than ever before a high number of partners coming from industry, coming from society, coming from commerce, and also a high number of students participating in these events. In the past, students would be watching from the sidelines, but we have a significant part of students that are coming on board just to witness these events and understand what's going on at their university. And for that, Honorable Minister, Honorable Guest of Honor, I want to say this is really a milestone. This is really part of the transformation that we are seeing in the university. So to the partners and to the students, I still want to say welcome. Lastly, I will not have so many remarks to make, but just to give a short story, not quite a story, but a philosophy about the problem of Africa's development. It's either Africa is developing or it's not developing, or developing not at the expected pace. And I've always called it a tragedy of a wrong manual. The manual we have used to develop Africa has been given to us. And we have also copied the very manual that has sent us to poverty. In our, I don't want to call it lack of wisdom or wisdom, but I think copying the very manual that has sentenced you to poverty is something that when you look back should tell you something. This is what the visionary leadership we got from our government, through our president, through our chancellor, through the championship of our honorable minister, has changed us through Education 5.0. So this tragedy was like a broken pipe. Honorable Guest of Honor, if I can say, the broken pipe concept that I'm trying to say, to give as a story, is when you pour your water in a pipe and you expect it at the other end. So you dutifully can pour your water and you wait the other end so that the water gets there. This is how much investment we've put in education. So much money has gone into education. Parents have put a lot of investment into education. And they wait the other end and expect that there will be an output. But the problem, when you have a whole leaking pipe in the middle, you can wait forever. Nothing comes through. It's all lost midway. And what you have done as government of Zimbabwe is to give us a complete solid pipe that when we make an input, we can expect outputs from the other end. Today, the exhibits you have been witnessing are telling us that if we put the right inputs and the pipe is made well through Education 5.0, we can wait on the other end and we can see products and services. I thank you.
Another round of applause for the Vice-Chancellor. Vice-Chancellor, sir, Professor Mapfuma, I would appreciate if you would indulge me, if I could invite you one more time to come and introduce our Honorable Minister. The Vice-Chancellor, sir. Let's put our hands together as he comes back.
Our guest of honor, ma'am, allow me to introduce our Honorable Minister. Allow me to write on the protocols as already pronounced. Our Honorable Minister, Professor Dr. Amon Mugwira, is a full professor in aerospace earth observation, unmanned aerial vehicle or drone technology applications, satellite remote sensing, geographic information science, and global satellite navigation systems. He has been a board member of key institutions in the country. He has a PhD in geoinformation science and satellite earth observation from Wageningen University and the International Institute of Geoinformation Science and Earth Observation in the Netherlands. Under the leadership of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, the Minister and his team in the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development is reconfigured the ministry from a consumptive ministry to a productive ministry through the implementation of Education 5.0 that is heritage-based. Allow me, our guest of honor, for me to say it makes a big difference to have a champion who runs with a vision on one hand, and to have a champion who has clarity of that vision, who has the commitment, the passion, and the resolve to see things done. And the determination and patience to take others through, while it's at the same time embodying the vibrance that inspires others. This is none other than our Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Honorable Professor Dr. Amon Mugwira. I will ask you, say, to come and make your remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Guest of honor, ma'am, representing Honorable Ziambi. I'm very pleased to be here at our premier university of Zimbabwe. And I brought our guest of honor. I also brought our Deputy Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Honorable Kindness Parad. We are having this event running, I think, for the second or third year, innovation. I'm pleased to be here. I think in every endeavor of a nation, there is a thing called a nation, which is built by people, and in which you have to build yourselves or ourselves. I want to talk about the strategy which we think we have to use to develop ourselves, especially the former colonized people or still colonized people. Guest of honor, I want to talk about strategies of a looter and the strategy of the owners. The strategy of a looter is to arrive in the forest, pitch a tent, temporary structure, poach the animals, go away. The strategy of the owner is to make sure that everything is done with permanence. To make sure that everything that we have is permanent. Due to the fact that we are using the wrong manual of the looter, which the Vice Chancellor was talking about, we plan things in short term, long term, and medium term, short term, medium term, long term, and behave as if it's normal to think about short term, medium term, and long term of your own country, which will not die. Because our country will not die. It will remain here. Because the country will remain here. You cannot use short term, medium term, long term. Whatever you do, you must do it with the idea of permanence. A looter will make sure that they quickly loot and go. So they have got long term, short term, medium term. So in our strategy, please, I beg you, if it's your country, don't use short term, medium term, long term. Use a permanent strategy. Unless you tell me which I don't think so. Because this country will remain. The genes that you have are the genes of the first person. The genes that are in you will remain for others. So it means whatever you do, igaro unokwana. Don't long term, don't short term, don't medium term your country. Just do it. So what is our enemy? It's ignorance, poverty, bad health. What are we trying to do? Is we are trying to plan for our country permanently. Because we are going nowhere, whether in life or in death. So I'm happy to be here on this important event. And I think, Vice Chancellor, I don't know whether I've scared people by saying, don't use that term called short term, medium term, long term, when you are permanently here. Those are terms of a looter. Wants to loot and go. I'm happy to be here in 2022 to address this research, innovation, and industrialization week. The event demonstrates how the University of Zimbabwe is making strides towards the actualization of our heritage-based education 5.0 philosophy that aims to liberate the people, that aims to put education at the center of the nation's development, that aims to bridge the gap between the so-called industry and the education. There should not be any difference. Hakuna compartment inonzi inotrainerwa vanhu necompartment inonzi inoemploywa vanhu. It's a continuum. Kusarehwa nhema. Industry is produced through education. Otherwise, how do you do it? Education 5.0 gives us the joy to create new things, the joy to think, the joy to do freedom of thinking. There is a saying which says, you know, we could have done better were it not because of our education. Our nation is working to fulfill the vision 2030 of becoming an upper middle income economy, just as a minimum, as it was enunciated by His Excellency the President, Dr. Etim Nangagwa. And this is serious. I am at a premier institution of higher level, and it has to become premier in level, not in label. It basically means that whatever we do, we must think deep. It's time to think. Thinking is hard. That's why a few people do it. In doing what we do, and seriously saying so, we have to follow design thinking. We have to follow the needs of our people. We have to ask ourselves why we are learning what we are learning. We have to ask ourselves whether we are still relevant in trying to do what we are doing. And this has to be done so seriously, without short-term, medium-term, long-term in your own country where you live forever, either as a corpse, as a spirit, or in life. It therefore means whatever syllabus that you follow must be trying to answer whether your people will live better after you have learned what you have learned or not. It therefore means your curriculum must be coming from what your people need. It's for a year. Because sometimes we are distracted by debates such as, the University of Zimbabwe's international ranking. Who is ranking? Why? Who's ranked? What indicator? Who developed those indicators? Why are you worried about that when that university is producing food for you? When it's producing doctors for you? When it's producing all the people that you need for you? Why should you be blinded by a rank which is behind the wall and nobody? Because you always lose on that rank because it's not your rank, it's not your priority. So that's why I'm saying let's think hard. Every time we talk, every time we act, every time we are in front of ourselves or other people. it then means we can produce an industry. Because an industry is nothing else but the repetitive production to fulfill human needs after some knowledge has been acquired. If we've acquired knowledge on how we grow maize, we will teach people how to grow maize so that we have fields to grow maize, which is in agro-industry. And when they've grown maize, we'll eat the maize. And we'll continue learning how to grow better maize. That cycle, that triangle is critical. So whatever you are teaching every day, and when you go to class, ask yourself, for who are you teaching? What is it? So the wobbling of the x-axis and the eccentricity of the ecliptic tells you, hey. That is the essence of Education 5.0. Call it in another name, but it just means education for liberating a people so that they can eat. So that I love the energy. The Honorable Minister, in the time, Honorable Parliamentary Affairs, Ms. Virginia Mabiza. She is our guest of honor today, representing Honorable Zimbabwe. So that's why when we were walking, you saw that I kept well in the background, so that I'm very away from there, so that you know who is the boss today. PS representing Honorable Zimbabwe, I kindly invite you to address these knowledgeable people. Thank you.
May we all be seated. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education. And I would also like to thank the Director of Ceremonies. Before I go into my message that I was sent to deliver by Honorable Zimbabwe, let me start by observing the protocols of this meeting. The Honorable Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Honorable Professor Dr. Amon Murwira. Minister of Industry and Commerce, I haven't seen her here, I'm sure she was meant to be here. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Zimbabwe, Professor Dr. Paul Mafumo. Chairman of the University of Zimbabwe Council, Mr. Douglas Woto. Members of the University Council, Vice Chancellors, all protocols observed. Let me start by appreciating you, VC, and your team for the warm welcome that you have given us. When I say us, I came along with the Chief Registrar of Deeds, Companies and Intellectual Property, Mr. Mshai. Mr. Mshai, you may want to rise so that they also get to see you. I'm sure you all know, I'm told I'm addressing knowledgeable people, so I'll not bother to say a lot of things because you are already knowledgeable. But the Chief Registrar's Office is the office that directly links with all universities or institutions or innovation centers in terms of registrations of their creations and any items of creativity. So thank you very much once again for the tour that we've just undertaken. Personally, I found it to be very informative, very educational, and also in some occasions very entertaining. I'm very grateful for that tour, Honorable Minister and VC, more particularly because in my portfolio as the Chief Accounting Officer responsible for intellectual property, we have often made reference to innovation hubs that are found in all local universities. So sometimes it becomes a theory, but when you get the opportunity to talk, to see, and even to exchange with those that are behind the creations, you get to appreciate more. And you know, we are the Ministry of Justice. We are responsible for drafting your laws. And when you draft laws, you should have a background of why you are drafting the laws and what purpose those laws are supposed to serve. So I'm very glad. I'm sure from today onwards, whenever we deal with intellectual property, anything to do with creativity and so forth, we now know what is involved. Having said that, I also would like to apologize on behalf of my minister, the Honorable Ziambi. He would have wanted to be with you today, but because of numerous commitments that he has, he found himself unable to come and be with you. But however, I'm very honored to represent him today. So it is my great honor and privilege to speak to you on this official opening of the 2022 University of Zimbabwe Research, Innovation and Industrial Week. I am pleased that the university is leading in the transformation journey towards actualizing the government's heritage-based education 5.0 philosophy. This mandates higher education institutions to actively participate in Zimbabwe's industrialization and modernization agenda by generating goods and services in response to the needs of our industry, commerce, and society. So, once again, I would like to refer to my brief tour of the exhibits, which has made me confident that the university is on the right trajectory, and I have no doubt that this institution is in a pole position to contribute to national development in congruent with National Development Strategy, the NDS1. And we are all moving towards our Vision 2030 of becoming a prosperous and empowered upper middle income economy. I also would like to comment on your chosen theme for this event, which reads, University of Zimbabwe, Actualization of a Research, Innovation, Industrialization, Ecosystem Model for Zimbabwe's Economic Development. I find this to be very befitting of the nation's quest for industrialization and modernization, again as espoused in our NDS1, and also a testimony that the University of Zimbabwe, as the country's premier institution, has embraced His Excellency the President's mantra that a country can only be developed by its only people. The Honorable Minister also took us on a lecture on what that means. And let us walk the talk henceforth. I'm also happy that His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Chancellor of the University of Zimbabwe has strategically introduced the General Notice 2929 of 2021 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act, Chapter 2223, to support the actualization of Education 5.0 by enabling the importation of relevant equipment and materials for research, innovation, and industrialization. And I'm told the acquisition includes key laboratory, plant processing, and manufacturing equipment, and material used in research and innovation processes. It also involves key raw materials necessary for conducting research, construction material, plant equipment, and specialist service for strategic complex projects. So I'm also told that this is used in innovation hubs, industrial parks, And this is something, Honorable Minister and VC, that we are also yet to see in order to have an in-depth appreciation of what the universities are doing for the purpose of innovation and development. So the material is also used in business incubation centers and institutions of higher and tertiary education, as well as special purpose vehicles which are involved in innovation, science and technology. So as the institution is in a drive to establish and operationalize its startups, spin-offs, and university companies, and to equip its innovation hub, labs and workshops, as well as establishing manufacturing plants for its industrial park and incubation centers. This legal instrument that I have alluded to, 2929, could not have come at a better time. In fact, the feedback I'm getting from the University of Zimbabwe management is that this instrument is a game changer for the development of innovation hubs and industrial parks in our higher education institutions. So as justice, we are reviewing all laws affecting IP to suit government's new demands of Zimbabwe industrialization and modernization agenda. For instance, the Patents Act, Industrial Designs Act, copyright, just to mention a few. So it has also been brought to our attention, and we are aware that while higher institutions are now expected to generate IPs in line with heritage-based education 5.0 philosophy, it still remains a challenge to get patents for heritage-based products on the World Intellectual Property Platform, the WIPO, the WIPO, and also back home at ARIPO. I'm sure we're all aware and versed with ARIPO, which is here in Harare. Generally, filing of local patents by universities has been very low, I'm told. And wherever I make reference to statistics and other practical activities to do with registrations and recording of innovations, I'm told by the Chief Registrar of these companies and intellectual property, a department in my ministry, who is hands-on on such activities. So many times I hear people complain when some patents are granted elsewhere for common products. But here in Zimbabwe, we should also show the interest in registering these patents. So, for instance, the Maheu formula, our own local brew, I'm told it was patented in the United States of America. Can you imagine Maheu being a patent of America, and yet it's our own local formula that is available in the public domain? Why are we not patenting Maheu and allowing other users to take advantage of what is our own? So I certainly hope to see more IP traffic come from higher and tertiary education institutions, the UZ included, and brought to the attention of the relevant office. My ministry is also updating all IP legislation, as I have mentioned, among other things. The ongoing restructuring, I'm sure you know about the restructuring of the IP office, which seeks to establish a semi-autonomous entity to administer IP in Zimbabwe. So you may be aware that in November 2021, government allowed the establishment of a semi-autonomous entity to administer companies and intellectual property matters in Zimbabwe. So further to that, I would like to inform you that my ministry is also coming up with a law for the protection of traditional knowledge and folklore, including genetic resources and heritage-based knowledge. This is very important, and as we made the tour, we came across a lot such instances. The last tour I made was, I can't remember the name now, but it was on folklore. Remember Tichona Ngano, Zikamba na Gondo. That is folklore. and you realize it's intellectual property, which sometimes we take for granted, but is our intellectual property, which we need to manage, and I'm sure you are aware of that. Let me also take this opportunity to inform you that last week, member states of the World Intellectual Property Organization, they passed a resolution at the just ended WIPO assemblies in Geneva to convene a diplomatic conference sometime next year in order to discuss and sign a treaty for the protection of traditional knowledge and genetic resources. So you see, these are highly regarded issues of IP, intellectual property, and to us, this is a milestone for WIPO following 20 years of tough negotiations, and Zimbabwe is happy to be part of that decision. So even at the international level, recognition and protection of traditional knowledge and genetic resources is taken very seriously. Thank you, Minister, for mentioning that we should value our own local products, including our own natural fruits, vegetables, foods, and so forth. Because those countries that we emulate, they value their own products, and they patent and protect them. So we should also do that. The WIPO assemblies that I'm talking about, I was privileged to attend, and I was sharing with my colleagues to say, whilst I was there, I said to myself, we are shortchanging ourselves in a number of ways. There was Jamaica at WIPO. What were they showcasing? They were showcasing their reggae music. We have Jerusalem there. We saw our people dancing in the front of this wall. It's our intellectual property. We can also protect it. We can also do a lot of things out of what our people are about. So there are a lot more things that we can protect. Anyway, we can spend the whole day talking because we're a rich country. We have got rich resources which we can exploit to our own advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, I am reliably informed that the University of Zimbabwe has made significant progress in formulating its draft IP policy. And this is with the aim to include the new pillars of education 5.0, innovation and industrialization. And that IP policy shall anchor the user's research, innovation, industrialization ecosystem for maximum productivity for the upliftment of our society. My ministry will keep its doors open to offer any related support the University of Zimbabwe may require in this regard. Take time to align your policy to the Zimbabwe national IP policy, because we also have crafted the national IP policy, which I know is almost due for review now. But the beauty of that national IP policy, Honorable Minister MPC, ladies and gentlemen, is it touches every sector. And not only that it touches, but it is a result of contributions coming from across sectors. So I think you should also acquaint yourselves with the IP policy that we have crafted for the nation. I'm also pleased to know that the UZ is now producing graduates that are sufficiently creative and focused to produce innovations that lead to creation of startup companies. One major distinct quality of an invention is that it should be capable of being used, whether industrially, but it should be exploited for real use. We don't invent toys, no. We invent real objects that are capable of being used for development. So I'm very happy to hear that, and also to have witnessed that the UZ is attained such levels. So I was talking about my ministry, which has undertaken a review of the Companies Act with the view to increase the ease of doing business with respect to registration of such start-up companies. I know part of the purpose why we are here is to also encourage good governance. And you will find that our new companies law, which is now the Companies and Other Business Entities Act, it caters for that, and we are ready to share and to advise where necessary in terms of the law. So our ministry's doors remain open for the review of our legislative frameworks and policies as we seek to continuously improve the business environment. The question is now, how ready are we for the fourth industrial revolution? And what is the state of legislative preparedness to tackle issues of artificial intelligence and non-traditional marks? We have a lot of work to do. Honorable Minister, Professor Dr. Murera, I am informed that our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mafumo, will be holding high-level dialogue on this subject after this session. We are looking forward to learning a lot as we hear intellectuals exchange on this very relevant subject of IP. And we also hope after the high-level dialogue, we are also going to be assisted in terms of revisiting our laws and making them reliable and helpful in terms of promoting your innovations. So I'm really looking forward to that. So universities frame dreams, they equip generations, and they shape tomorrow. So the University of Zimbabwe, please, can you help us? And to use the Honorable Minister's words, can you help us with serious stuff? Give us serious stuff that we can use to create a new world. And with these few remarks, I would now like to declare this 2022 University of Zimbabwe Research, Innovation and Industrialization Week officially open.
We may be seated. Honorable Minister, speaking from a student affairs perspective as Dean of Students, when someone comes through and they exude self-confidence, self-efficacy, assertiveness, power, authority, and influence, we say they have a drip. They have the drip. You are a student and you believe Mrs. Mabila has the drip. Thank you so much for modeling, excellence. I'm sure, my young people, our students, as Mrs. Mabiza was going through the speech, someone was saying one day, I want to be at that podium and I want to speak like her. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move on with our program, may I kindly request Dr. Nota to give us one piece. Dr. Nota.
Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, nyika yakanaka. Zimbabwe, nyika yatinoda. Zimbabwe, nyika yakanaka. Yatakapiwa na Mwari nyika iyo. Zimbabwe, nyika yakanaka. Zimbabwe, nyika yatinoda. Zimbabwe, nyika vatinodada navo, tinavo ivo vamnangagwa, tinavo ivo vachiwena, vatakapiwa naMwari ndivo vega. Tine zvakawanda zvinotiyevedza, nzizi, makomo, masango neroivhu, migwagwa nemaguta zvinotiyevedza, saka zvinotererai kamunzwe. Tine zvakawanda zvinotiyevedza, nzizi, makomo, masango neroivhu, migwagwa nemaguta zvinotiyevedza, saka zvinotererai kamunzwe. Ivhu inaka yevana veZimbabwe, ivhu inaka yedu vechidiki, tipei ivhu redu muZimbabwe, tigoshandura upfumi muZimbabwe. Ivhu inaka yevana veZimbabwe, ivhu inaka yedu vechidiki, tipei ivhu redu muZimbabwe, tigoshandura upfumi muZimbabwe. Tinavo vatinodada navo, vakarwira rusununguko rwedu muZimbabwe, mawo veterans muJiba naChimbwido, rangarirai basa guru ravakaita. Tinavo vatinodada navo, vakarwira rusununguko rwedu muZimbabwe, mawo veterans muJiba naChimbwido, rangarirai basa guru ravakaita. University of Zimbabwe, University of our choice. Shina, shina, UZT we shina, 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 UZT yeah, yeah, yeah. Education 5.0 yo shina. University of Zimbabwe, the University of our choice. Shina, shina, UZT we shina, 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 UZT yeah, yeah, yeah. Education 5.0 yo shina. Industrialization of all our programs, innovativeness is our major approach to everything we do at UZ. Education 5.0 yo shina. Industrialization of all our programs, innovativeness is our major approach to everything we do at UZ. Education 5.0 yo shina. Tinavo vatinodada navo, vana mzvina fundo varairidzi vezvidobi, vane mangoromera anoshamisa kwazvo. Education 5.0 yo shina. Tinavo vatinodada navo, vana mzvina fundo varairidzi vezvidobi, vane mangoromera anoshamisa kwazvo. Education 5.0 yo shina. University of Zimbabwe, UT we shina. Shina, shina, UT we shina. Shina, shina, shina na mabasa, muZimbabwe muve nerujeko. University of Zimbabwe, that we shina, 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 we shina, 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 shina na mabasa, muZimbabwe muve nerujeko.
much, ladies and gentlemen. As we move on with our program, now we are going to have a high-level dialogue under the title Legal and Corporate Governance Implications for Emerging Education 5.0 Companies. Our lead discussant for this session is none other than our Honorable Minister, Professor Dr. Amon Mwira, and our facilitator is our Vice Chancellor, Professor Paul Mafuma. At this juncture, allow me to invite Professor Maduku to join the panel, Mr. Mshai to join the panel, Dr. Professor Makochekano to also join the panel. And let's put our hands together as our Vice Chancellor takes the floor to facilitate the discussion.
Guest of honor, Honorable Minister, Professor Mwira, Deputy Minister, I recognize you, Honorable Paraza. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to get into a dialogue. And really the purpose of a dialogue is to enable people to interrogate, speak to issues that they consider critical for development of their nation. And remember, the nation is also situated in the global scheme of things. But whenever we have a debate, it starts with our own nation and how we then position ourselves. I'm sure you heard the guest of honor was speaking to the WIPO agreement that was made. And I think what we got interested in was that Zimbabwe was there. So it was there in the global scheme of things. So when people go out there to join the international community, their fulcrum is in their nation. If you are not a member of the party, as they call it, which means, which nation do you belong to? That's what they ask. If you are not a member of the party, then you are an observer. Those are the rules that they made. I don't make rules. I follow them, hearing from those that make them. So they say if you are not a member of the party, you are an observer. So for us to become members of the party, we start at home. And for us to be able to speak with one voice, we start with the dialogue. So, as intellectuals here, Honorable Guest of Honor, Honorable Minister, we want to develop and use a culture where we interact and dialogue on issues that we are made of. If you are a lawyer, you discuss legal issues. If you are a soccer player, you discuss football. If you are an academic, you discuss scholarship. Rarely do we get any engineer discussing cooking. So that's the culture we are trying to build. With those remarks, I think I want to introduce the topic of the day. The topic of the day, I want to recognize the panelists. The topic of the day is to say, now we are in Education 5.0. And when we transform into Education 5.0, it means our various systems also have to transform. Our instruments have to transform. whether they are legal instruments, technical instruments, our approach to doing things, including the culture, has to change to conform to the newly found philosophy. That's where we are. So allow me to say, maybe I didn't say the truth previously about setting the rules. Here I have an opportunity to set the rules a little bit. So I'm going to set the rules. I'm going to ask that our lead discussant, who is our Honorable Minister, our champion of Education 5.0, gives us no more than 10 minutes of really breaking the ice. Then each discussant will have 3 to 5 minutes to also respond to that. After they are done, we will open the floor to allow participants here to also make their inputs, pose questions, and then we allow also rounds of responses from our discussants. We are not saying they know it all. We are also not saying you know it all. It is a dialogue. With that introduction and those rules, I would like to humbly welcome our Honorable Minister, Professor Dr. Amon Mugula, to come and take the floor and just lead us. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, BC, Professor Mamfumo. I just want to start by saying, how come we are here, where we are, this space, at this time. Zimbabwe is an education system. And what education system was it? And what is it now? What is our grand aim? The first issue is that as a country we have been very literate. I mean, we are literate people. Very literate. We get read and write. I think it's almost 100% now. I think I had some preliminary results of the census in Chikomba. There were only out of more than 50,000 people. There were only about 20 people who couldn't tell when they were born, which basically is a very small percentage of people. But then the question is, this country, the literacy rate has been going up, but the level of industrialization has been going down. What's going on? So you find out that we have to go to the basis of education itself, to say what are we teaching each other. It was mainly teaching, research, and workshops, like this which we are doing. Talking, a lot. Talking, very good at it, extremely good. We can even describe our hunger, but we don't take action to solve it. Then we did a design analysis. And then that design analysis really revealed that we were only doing these three things. But people are very good at it, really. As, we are just academics, but you need to eat. Because we thought that ideas would come from there so that we can develop this country. So, yeah. So, that was Education 3.0. We said, what is the problem with Education 3.0? It's in discongruence with our aim. Our aim is to have a country's development that is inspired by production of goods and services, which is modernization, industrialization. This model does not result in that. And of course, because it was a colonial model, and because Professor Mamfumo was talking about the Rome Manual, That manual was meant to produce a worker to come and work in an industry. So you had really to be primed to work for others. And then we took it as a natural way in which we must be trained. Now I can do things. Come and use me. Huh? Come and use me. I want to work in your industry so that you give me money so that I drink a just on Friday. Dramatically said. But that is the fact. Very literate people who are ready to be used in someone's industry, but not asking, how did that person produce that industry? Surely they must be teaching each other in a different way. That's when we then said, after this analysis, we did a skills audit in 2018. And this skills audit revealed something very interesting, but very depressing. In terms of skill levels in science, for example, in science, skills levels in science were found to be 3%. People know science, they can tell you the chemical formula of carbohydrates very easily. Nice, but chibikas. Carbohydrates or nothing. Right? Okay, medicine. We've got very good doctors. No, Professor Masangasero. Very good doctors. Skills level in medicine, 5%. Skills deficit, 95%. So, because when you are here at the University of Zimbabwe, and you have got a medical school, and you've got 7 or 27 professors, let's say, in medicine, surely the country is more than 70 people. We are many. So the skills level, 95%. What is the result? We are exporting patients in this country. They're good at referrals. Oh, you know, I know a good doctor who is in India. So they send people, and we are spending about 1.1 billion US dollars exporting patients. This is why we have got this percentage that I have talked about in medicine, isn't it? In commerce, what are the skills levels in commerce? I'm not taking something I'm not scared. 121% capability to sell, but sell what? What are you selling? You end up selling money. That's one of the problems. So money should not be sold. In actual fact, money is a medium of exchange. We must be selling goods and services. So we looked at all these things, and the overall percentage was that in law, for example, in law, these lawyers, skills levels 8%, skills deficit 92%. Yeah, and they limit, and they actually have got their act which limits who can be a lawyer, and so forth. And there are very few. Anyway, we debugged it using the Manpower Development Act. We said anybody who is found preventing people from learning what they should learn will dissolve them. Anyway, this is the legal process now. Now, having moved in that direction, we then said, what is the solution to our predicament? Because the president had said, I want to industrialize this country using the human capital of this country, using the people of this country. How do I do that? And he met vice chancellors and captains of industry on 9 January 2018. And he said, I want an education that produces goods and services. Because in the meantime, we are having very educated people, professors who actually run in the street, give me a job, give me a job. We made people very nicely. I hope I'm saying something. So he said, no, innovation, industrialization should be part and parcel of what people are taught at institutions of higher learning. Because these are the people that will industrialize and modernize the country. Like what happens in America, like what happens in Europe, or like what happens in Russia, and China, and everyone. People are doing this. So we then said, by adding innovation and industrialization, it becomes education 5.0. Then comes to the issue of saying, what we want is our graduate. We don't want a person who is just dangling a paper. We want a person who is dangling skill, who can work on their own, who can actually inspire. We are not saying everybody is so good that they will have an industry, but at least we must have some, not zero. If it's zero, it means there's something wrong with the system, not with the people. So we then had to review the legal framework after having said education 5.0. And through, but first of all, before the legal framework. Let me talk about the legal framework, just to finish this. We say, let's review the Principal Act of Manpower Development, which is Manpower Planning and Development Act. We reviewed it, emphasizing that every university, every teacher's college, everybody must include innovation and industrialization in the curriculum. So it's legal now. Why? We started with the Manpower Planning and Development Act because it's the principal act. Every other act, like the University of Zimbabwe Act, comes because the Manpower Development Act has decided that they should be a university, isn't it? Right? Then you do the University of Zimbabwe. So we then reviewed it, and now it's a legal requirement for a university to have innovation and industrialization. It's part of its mission. We went then to look at the Center for Education, Innovation, Research and Development, which is again emphasizing this issue. And then we went on to review the Universities Act, State Universities Act, which we have now looked at and are now just waiting for the president's signature. They are done, which is again emphasizing innovation and industrialization, so that we produce these people that we need to produce goods and services. Because if your education is saying you must cram, surely you produce cramming people. And over the years, it becomes a culture. And then you wonder, but I can do physics. I know physics. You know physics, but do you do physics? Because doing physics makes us have aeroplanes. Not know physics. But how will you go to Mars? So we then looked at this and seriously. Now, what is the kind of graduate that we need in the innovation process? Comes the subject that I'm going to address now. A student goes through their program, and it includes innovation and industrialization. And when they exhibit like that, what they have done today, and so forth, you select the students that win. They go into the innovation hub, they are taught things. How to improve the innovation, how to do business out of the innovation, and how to form their own company. Which the university, of course, has a share in it, but a minority share. The student is the director. Big director. And the government funds until that student is able to establish their own company. Mari tinayo, zviri nane, kuipa mari, yokufoma company rather than yokupa sadza every time. So, this is what we have done, and we have got, I think you registered the first companies here. But what are the governance issues around that? Company, their student, university has got a shareholding in it, but it's a minority shareholding. So that the university also begins to have money, to have more innovators that are sponsored through the flow of money that comes in. Right? So this university, let's say it has got 1,000 startups, and they are doing well, and each of them is giving you $1,000 per month. Do you know 1,000 startups give you $1 million per month? Kugadzira mari. This is what we mean by Education 5.0 and the legal framework that enables it. Now it's legal. Uchibva pa university pako, unobva uine degree rako, unobva uine company yako, unobva uine dignity yako, watofoma a tax pool for the government. We can actually have more tax because we have produced our own private sector. Private sector inobikwa. Private sector zviremunhu anobva kumazi. Zvinobvira kupa madhuku mari kuti iwe ita mari iwe. Kana waita mari unotipa 45% wazviwa, no tax yako. This is how you develop a country deliberately. Because we are interested in making you have business. Why? Because we want to take tax from you. That's how we grow a private sector. A private sector is not a person who comes from Mars. It's a person that we deliberately sponsor to do their own business so that we are able to get money from them as tax and then be able to support education, be able to support infrastructure. I hope you understand. It's a grand strategy. Inoshandisa vanhu venyika iyoyo and who are able to be sponsored. So it's not a waste of money. Because right now we are wasting money. We were wasting money trying to people get certificates to go and sit at home. I would rather have
certificates and the money to start a company so that those people are useful tax bases. So it's not charity, it's national duty. So we will sponsor cohorts. I think now we paid 198 million for the cohort too. We have spent almost $1 billion for our students to become managing directors of companies. We have even started an incubation place in Masasa so that they can go and learn. We are developing our own people deliberately. I hope you can spread this message, Kuti. Kwaita mari. But you have to work for it. That's the issue. So, these are the legal implications. We will grow a private sector in this country using our students. They will be the captains of industry. I don't go manage my industry. You know, the managing director of Coca-Cola. You understand? So, we say for Education 5.0 to work, there are 5 things that have to happen. 1, our programs have to change and use it as change the program. 2, our staffing has to change in terms of attitude. Because why are we at university? How can you teach from 7 to 7? 7 to 7, so it has to be modular. Now, second, third is the physical and digital infrastructure. We are trying, really. With the resources that we have changed, even the president has changed the X and so forth and so, the declaration, so that we are able to build our things quickly. We build that innovation up on our own. With our own money. It's not going to donation. It's not going to and we are building hospitals. We are building all these things. That's the physical infrastructure. Trikwaka, the state-of-the-art quinary hospital and the UZ farm. And we are doing it ourselves in the industrial park, with our own people. Where our students are the apprentices, they are helping to build them. We will transform. And then when we have done that, we are able to have a physical infrastructure that enables people to have dignity and work for themselves and begin to have patients that we're going to India coming back here at the University of Zimbabwe. Masakandi Sauripo, Tamgadzira, infrastructure, legal infrastructure, physical infrastructure, more rapa, muita mari. Number 4, the legal infrastructure, which I talked about. Doing the legal reform of everything so that it becomes very legal and neat. We've done it. Number 5, fund it. We fund it. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you. This is quite inspiring. It also introduces the level of controversy that we require for this kind of debate. I've heard people say, don't worry about paying anything. We'll give it for free so that you don't have a stake. By the time you come back and say, but can you, so I think you're telling us with Chimbosia Shamahara. And also, kutana professor wa produce. Rakurega kunyanya popotera mali. I think it's very important. We take it to the next. I think I want to end with the honorable guests of honor, and allow those who are roving mics. Can you give the chief director first to just give us your remarks? This is free. Tell us what you think in line with what the honorable minister has said. Especially when you don't, this is the one time when you are allowed to disagree.
moment you get out of there, you're not allowed. So yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you so much, guest of honor, honorable minister, honorable panelists, and fellow friends. Indeed, I can feel the passion even from here, but I'm also agreeable, fortunately. I'm also agreeable that industry is a deliberate effort by citizens to move in a certain way, and by any chance you realize that challenges produce solutions, and solutions become patentable creations. I'm coming from an environment where I deal with big business and small business. And in terms of big business, they really know how to ring fence ideas, ring fence opportunities, even before they become opportunities. One of the reasons why, Honorable Minister, we know which company is coming to Zimbabwe is that 10 years ahead of time, they start ring fencing trademarks, ring fencing certain patents. We know which company is coming simply by the filings they are making, because they are moving into that business environment. So they do research, and they deliberately start putting in place certain measures that frustrate others from competing with them. Now in business, we realize that we are friends in college, but not necessarily in business. You are going to be competing against fellow business persons. So it's very important for you to have the infrastructure that allows you to do business. And that infrastructure is usually, we start with the law. And from the law, we go to the administrative issues. We have a very good law now in terms of the Companies and Business Entities Act, which actually simplifies the registration process. Not only simplifies, but also allows the registrar to assist. The previous act did not allow the registrar to assist startup companies. We were only regulators and observers. But the new law allows the registrar to literally assist, even where there is internal disagreement. There is opportunity for the registrar to allow business to carry on. Having said that, I also want to, the Honorable Minister said something that is very profound, that they are funding research, they are funding innovation. And that relationship is very important, because many times we hear lack of funds as a reason why people cannot make progress in business, in research and innovation. But now that the funding is real, it's also very important that the funding must be supported by a policy. That policy is what the guest of honor talked about, that policy that allows innovation to benefit from funding. And also in that policy, it must define the relationship. Definition of relationship is where government is funded and what is the interest of government in the project. That interest has to be defined, because when it becomes successful, it becomes a center of dispute. When you are unsuccessful, there is no problem. When you are failing, there is no issue. The moment you succeed, then we look at definitions. How much government should get, how much university must get, how much professor must take home. So that relationship is important, and we need to define it. We don't want to have disputes, we want to have progress and success. Now, the last point I want to mention is that many times we have a lot of interest in terms of registration. We want quick registrations, we want fast registrations, we want turnaround time, which is maybe hours. That's good. We are automating right now. There is a system in place that is being tested. But above that, we need to know that after registration, the journey has started. Don't ignore the cooperation at birth. It's called baby dumping. Many people, once they register, they ignore the company itself, and it goes into disuse. Even though the business is functioning, it functions divorced from the company. That's very common among SMEs. We need to correct that. It mustn't happen to spin-offs coming from an institution like this one. The last thing I want to say, intellectual property protects business, not innovation. This is maybe controversial, but it's true. Innovation is a result of a business solution to a problem. So that business solution must be protected, and the protection is intellectual property. And I would want to urge universities that whatever company is going out there, have a portfolio. What is it that you have filed? Why have you not filed? Do you know the registrar? Do you know where to find them? Why are you not aware of the registrar? Our fees are in Zim dollars. They are not prohibitive. They are very affordable, and yet people still somehow don't register. Thank you.
I think this is the value of the dialogue. I think there's some learning there, apart from the facts being given. I think there's some learning, and we would want to learn more. But as I was listening, I'm usually a good listener. I got one part. That there will be people who have made a trajectory to make sure that they really carve in a path for themselves, and they will frustrate you. So for us who are just starting, I think that's an important message. Let's move on. Prof. Maduk, give us your take.
Thank you, Prof. I hope I'm doing it.
Yes.
Okay, Master of Ceremonies, Vice Chancellor, Guest of Honor, Honorable Minister, there is a Deputy Minister as well, and then the rest of our colleagues who are here. I think that my contribution, which is to do with the legal implications of the various companies coming out of Education 5.0, I can start by saying we are merely introducing, I think in this high-level dialogue, we are merely introducing these implications that would then require, for most of us to keep reflecting around them, because there's so many things that are coming up and that ought to be recognized as such. But for me, I just want to say to all of you, let's ask the question, why law? Why go through a Ministry of Justice? Everyone will still have to ensure that there is a legal framework. And so the question is why? And that even if you may want to avoid the law, you will not succeed. You still have to say, what does the law say about this? So we have to say, why law? Why do we need law? Do we need it in the first place? Or why do we need it? I have to answer that question. The answer is that human beings are inherently selfish. And I must say that they are inherently selfish. They are created to look at self-interest. And that if they look at self-interest, the tendency is that your self-interest would undermine the self-interest of the other person. So what will happen? Then there is a multiplication of self-interests, would then lead to self-destruction. People get to fight each other, because as you pursue your interest, you are actually colliding with the interests of the other person. So law comes in, that is the intention. It may not succeed, because I'm sure it will not succeed in many cases. The intention is to have some rules that will regulate that, because human activity is about those things. You are born to pursue your interest. I think when you are born, you want to eat. You don't ask someone to eat. It's yourself. And then as you do that, you pursue those needs, usually not taking into account those other people that are also pursuing their needs. So what do? Let's try to put some rules in place so we regulate how you deal with your self-interest. And then you take into account others. And then when you have those rules don't make sense unless there is a way in which they are enforced. You can have rules, but the people will not voluntarily follow my rules. I think my church one is my church. We got rule so you have to have too many rules. That's not. Saka law is different from that. It's rules plus enforcement, and that enforcement is by state enforcement. So law is law only because it is state enforcement, forced by the state to comply with certain rules that will make society better. So for you to succeed, you must understand what the law is saying. So you see where you operate. If you don't do that, unorana danger imechete. Because whether they like to or not. That's what I think the Honorable Minister led when he left here and went to government. He realized, okay, I want to do my innovation. He's told, no, it died bill. As we eat so he said, this is a main power development, but Uninga was Tango Chichachi. No. That is the essence of my legal implications. There is a thing, that's what I want to call, there's a thing called law. I think my students will remember that. There's a thing called law. Number 2, it matters. 3, you must take it into account. Kunechi knows law, chaga kosh, and take it into account. Now, those are the implications. Don't undo my legal implications. And I'll just run through, just give me 2 minutes to run through examples of that. You cannot, you do things, and then law, then when we get to the examples I want to, we should understand law in 2 frameworks. The first framework is that law is as it is, it exists, it's a fact. So law exists there. Then the second is that law can be says. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But when we say this is what the law says next, is it right what the law is saying? Is there no? So there's always a framework for changing the law, which is why we have permanently in place at any one time people who are responsible for lawmaking. In other words, society must continue to move. You understand the law as it stands. When you are not happy with it, engage in a framework that comes in and so forth. So that is the thing that. So can I give you one example which can really affect our colleagues that once what the minister has outlined, you have your company, you register a company and so on, you have heard already from the registrar that there is already an office that says you must register. It means there is one rule which we have to grapple with. It says that without registration, you do not exist. No registration, no existence. In other words, you are not a company until you are registered. But we know as a fact you may be operating as a company. And that is one area which is a legal implication. And there you are different from others. My companies, that is the rule. But my church, as whether registered or not, my political parties have no registration, or do a political party, and so forth. So, unfortunately, my companies, no registration, no existence. There is no such thing as an unregistered company. A company must be registered. Now, once you get that implication, you have to be registered. Then you have to go through the regulatory framework. You have to satisfy it, and so on. That's one point you have to take into account. The other thing that affects our framework about law is that law always chooses to be complex. And that we want to ensure that it is less complex. Law is not choose how it complex. Complex. So how does it start being complex? You'll be told on day one that there is no one law. So you are born with the companies and other business entities act. What but as you see this, say income tax act because we also butter tax. Income tax act. Okay, company employ 1 or 2 people. Labor act. So you have to comply with the Labor Act. What do you name patents? Okay, patents act, you have to register and so on and so on. Okay, so you are unhappy with what is that? Go to court. So whatever the hip is, that's illegal. And then most of our colleagues don't know that a company is a separate entity. This is most of the stupid. I'm time limited. All right, that's right.
Now to the lawyer.
I'm saying that most people don't realize that a company is a separate legal entity. One of the most important legal implications is that once you form a company, you form an entity separate from you. It exists independent of you. And what that implication means, for example, you have to decide where you are. Either or not shareholder, shareholder, and you have to comply with being a shareholder. Then, or you choose to be a director, which is another entity, I think, the corporate governance framework. You can choose to be a director without necessarily being a shareholder. And if you never rights are I need to go to direct. Then you can also choose to be an employee, which is a third category. Even though any company I go to look employer now, benefit more do I then become shareholder? Or then you can also be to be a shareholder and the director or the employee with company. These are very important because they will lead to a situation where right at in a time when we continue to explore these things, most of the examples you get in town, and I think I'm allowed to be open and say that I had one last VC, a company, it is a family company, where we find it was very difficult. So the father passes on, so you leave the mother and the daughters and the children. But my arrangements are still clear who is what. The amount of animosity and tension in the family, I had to tell in one case, and I got to tell the judge, this one, we are the Malaga. Is it clear this is where we are? But lawyer, we need a million mile. Lawyer, then stood there and said, look, it's irrelevant. That's why he says it's irrelevant. It's a commercial, it's a commercial dispute. It is because of what the minister has carefully said, legal implications are very important, and that you must always take them into account. Where you find them standing in your way, then you go through an guest of honor and so on. Let's change them and so on. But before you change them, comply. That would be my contribution, Chair.
Thank you very much, Prof. Maduk. I doubted, I didn't realize that you're a lawyer because you said you'd want 2 minutes, but you didn't wait to get the 2 minutes. And I think I was almost thinking you are getting to be like myself, to be an ecologist. Because when you really were explaining the self-interest in animals, including human beings, that they will save, and they shall continue to save. And hence the importance of law. And I think lastly, the important part of choose what you want to be and know about what you can be. You can be a director, you can be an employee of the company, you can be a shareholder. And I think it's important for our startups that our new entry to the system really understand the implication of that. So we'll come back to that, picking it up from this dialogue. I move over to Prof. Makochikano.
Afternoon, everyone. Firstly, bowing my head to the guest of honor, and Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Vice Chancellor, all protocols observed. Thank you very much. Since I'm speaking towards the end, since I represent people from the business, we are the ones who produce the goods and services. which I know that's what we want, especially, and we are the ones who produce the money. So you should be happy because we talk about money in business. I will react, I have 4 reactions to what Honorable Minister said, and also taking on board the deliberations from the morning. So first of all, I am happy, Honorable Minister, when you say as government and through your ministry that you are funding startups. So I want to combine that with what PS has said. PS, you were lamenting the fact that you said that they are patented in the US. And one of the reasons why we see such, I'm told also Mazoe, and there may be many, but one of the reasons is simply that there is limited finances to go through the process, because when you patent a product, it has to be something that has been improved to the extent that any serious buyer can say, I like this product in terms of quality. So in most cases, yes, from the business end, again, talking my interaction with the business, we find that they may have an idea and they may produce, say, a demo product, but unfortunately, there is no funding to improve it to the extent that it now appeals such that you need to see the process of patenting or having all the necessary legal documents to say, this is my product. So I am happy, Honorable Minister, through government, that as government you've taken upon itself to give startups, and that is very much commendable. That's one. Then secondly, I think also as we move, looking into the future, Honorable Minister, you say we want things that are permanent, not short-term, long-term, or whatever. I think also even from the legal side as we do, there's this thing, like when you start a product or a bit, so product is generic to me as I speak, we are talking of a tangible product. It can be a process of how things done or a new methods of accounting, whatever it is when you patent. There's also what we see globally, what other countries have done. There's the issue of local content, which is very important. I give an example. Of course, we hear it now. We say buy Zimbabwe, buy. But it started with America 1933. They have what they call Buy America Act. What we are saying here is when this product is started, can we have some, not of course all products, but in our legal to say, can we encourage that as I start my business, or as business start a new product or innovate, that there is some sufficient demand locally before we think of exporting. And that can be done through some of the laws, one of them being this local content, or of course here we talk of Buy Zimbabwe, and for some of the products you see it's Buy Zimbabwe, but they are imported from somewhere. But all I'm saying is there's need to ensure that we have that component where we say local content, and that also we back and try to support these new products that come, especially that are designed and manufactured or started by Zimbabweans, then tied to that page with local content. Also in terms of business, there's what is called government procurement, where we are saying, and again, if we, through the laws again, and this can also help. For instance, if government, if I start a company, as an example, to make pencils, just a pencil, even if it's 5 cents or $1, if we have a serious and implemented by government procurement, was when the Minister of Primary Education, for instance, when they want to buy a pen $1, if they have 5 million people, it means already, even if it's a small, but it's already 5 million. And the government in any country is the major buyer of goods and services. Now, if we have a policy where we say someone started his or a company making pens, whatever the name was, Watunya pen or whatever, if we have a begging to say, government, when you want to buy pen, can you give priority to local producers? And this is a fact, and that's how most developed countries are doing. But we need government to be a champion in terms of procuring locally. Of course, there are exceptions where some things we cannot produce or it takes time. Of course, to say buy a plane made in Chipinge to my brothers. No. But all I'm saying they can, but we are saying there are a lot as an example. So we need also that as business to say government has to prioritize buying of local products, such that even these startups, when they come up with their products, and if there's backing, it means it helps them to, in economics, to say economies of scale, to produce more, because they are guaranteed of local demand. And once government start that, even private sector can also come in to start preferring to buy those that are locally produced. Then lastly, VC, I think also Prof. Madupe said and others lamented to say the issues about illegal. I think there's need to increase the trainings. First of all, of course, for the startup, but even in the business community, most companies or some they don't know the importance of say we produced a new product of patenting to say what does it help me, or having intellectual property, what does it help me. I think we still need in our business community that training or that sensitization that is needed to be done. And even the new startups also, as they start their business, there is a need for sensitization to see the value of just patenting, of having property rights, of having the intellectual rights. For instance, the sign, as an example, because some don't know, that logo or sign of Benz, that one you see, it's worth 22 billion USD. Just that logo, when you see to say, which shows that this is a Benz. But some of us, we don't know from business to say the patenting or intellectual property is important. We just say, what I want is to just offer goods and services. So we did that sensitization. I think VC, let me rest my case for now.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kochikano. I think you put it right. I'll start with your last, which is awareness and training for people to just know their worth also. I think it's important. And understand probably the value chain, just that we're doing business. And I think from a legal perspective, I think it's also that law is not associated with penalty. You didn't register, if they catch you, then they will. This is not known, if they catch you, they will. I think it's about awareness. It's again awareness that this is meant to be on your side. It's meant to facilitate. I think, thank you very much for bringing that forward from a business perspective. And I will then end with our guest of honor to make an intervention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, VC. Being the last speaker, my reaction is going to be very brief. And it's a summation of what has been spoken already, including what you said, VC. Firstly, let me applaud the introduction of Education 5.0. I want to say this is very progressive, and we are talking here of practicality. We are seeing real work being done on the ground. We are running away from theory, and we are doing serious stuff, to quote the Honorable Minister. So I want to once again say congratulations to the authorities for moving with world trends. So I would also like to say Professor Maduku, the Chief Registrar, and Prof, they've spoken at large about the content of why we are here. But let me say on behalf of the Minister of Justice, yes, the law is the law, but above all, our perception of the law is that the law is a tool for development. If our laws are not progressive, there will not be any development. So we say there's a certain perception to say we make the rules. Yes, to a certain extent we make the rules, but let us make the rules together. I have always spoken about our constitution, our 2013 constitution, which I also want to say is progressive, in the sense that it introduces a consultative way of making our laws. Let us take interest whenever our laws that affect us are being crafted. The parliamentarians may not have in-depth appreciation of what we're doing. So what we do is the process of lawmaking is whenever a law is going to be made, it's first put in the public domain, it's gazetted. Are we taking interest? We amended the Copyright Act not so long ago. Did we take interest in inputting into the copyright law to make sure that it also caters for our interest? Let us do that. It's very sad when I share with you to say sometimes the gazetted laws come as they are without any change. This shows the lack of involvement. Let us take interest and also input so that views that concern our various sectors are also incorporated into the law, because the law is cross-cutting. VC, you said we are everywhere. Yes, as Minister of Justice, we are everywhere. Some people may think we are usurping. We are not usurping. We are everywhere because the law is cross-cutting, but we do not have to craft the laws alone. The laws go to Parliament after everyone else has been involved. I've taken note of the need for government procurement regulations to also assist, as the professor has indicated. I'm sure something has been done. The 2929 that I've spoken about, it touches on that, but we still have a long way to go. Yes, government is the biggest consumer, the biggest purchaser, the biggest procurer. So if laws and policies support that, I'm sure we could be somewhere. And last but not least, again, I would like to touch on awareness of IP. Very few people are aware of IP and its implications, but it is also our duty, even as Minister of Justice, to make people aware of the IP policy that I spoke about in my keynote speech. We have an IP policy. The University of Zimbabwe also have an IP policy. Let us embark on awareness programs so that people become aware of IP and its value chain. The value chain is the motivator in my view. When somebody knows that out of IP, they may earn a living, they can earn a living, they can make money, it will be important for them to appreciate what it entails. Last but not least, I would like to say our ministry is an open door policy. Please feel free to come to us where you want clarity, be it about formation of companies, be it about registration of intellectual property. Please come to us through the Chief Registrar's Department and the Minister of Justice. Having said that, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity.
Madam Guest of Honor, thank you very much. And I think we have to really, take note of what she has said about participation as these laws are made. So that we participate, we contribute, and make sure that we don't even give them the difficulty of having to write them and move those laws without your participation, and assume that you saw it. The other part, I think, is about the products. I think laws can be made to favor what we make from our startups, from the Buy Zimbabwe, but I think there's a hidden part. I think that should also come with the law. The quality of product and the quality of service. If we are inherently competitive, then we will make a big favor. I will leave it there and say, open the floor just for Can we take, Madam Guest of Honor, is it your time? You can take just one round of inputs, questions, so that while she's here, can we really avoid making a presentation, just very brief? Members, where do I start? I start from there. I recognize you, then I recognize the person right at the back, then I'll come forward and recognize you, say, and behind there. So 4 people, then our discussants can then respond. And it'll be very brief. And those with mics, please get positioned so that we don't lose time in between. Yes, Dr. Bada.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, the Vice Chancellor. I'm Dr. Pote, and I'm a proud alumni of this university. My contribution to this, I'm a graduate of the Education 3.0. And as a graduate of Education 3.0, we have had some work that we were doing here. Like, for example, myself, I was developing a medicine that was very important for veterinary application. Are you going also to take us on board as alumni to continue with our innovations that we had started? And will the government support us? Because I've heard they are supporting students. What about us as alumni? Are we also going to be taken on board to proceed with our innovations so that they can see a day in the industry? Because we think what we have worked on has some potential to get there.
Thank you.
And also, will you also accept to give us also maybe to partner with our current employees or institutions? Like now I'm based at Great Zimbabwe University. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's move on. Let me have the question right from that end.
Thank you so much, Director of Ceremonies. The question that I'm going to ask is directed to Professor. My name is Chris. I'm going to think like a very ordinary man, the so-called man in the Pangani. When you were speaking, you say there are 2 things that we must understand about the law as it is, and also the law as it ought to be. So the question is, what if maybe at the face of it, the law is so unfair, such that it offends the established rules of natural justice? Do we first of all uphold it, or do we refuse to enforce it because it may affect the established rules of natural justice?
Thank you. Let's come down here. There was a hand right in front, and then there was a hand behind. We'll take those 4 and allow our panelists to respond right here in front.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was listening very, very carefully, but there are 2 things that were mentioned. The guest of honor talked about the value chain. The VC also talked about the value chain. The only thing that, from my observation, I just want to find out the relationship between the 5.0 and the customer, the identification of the customer needs there. Because you see, a chain cannot be pushed. A chain has to be pulled. And the people or customers are the one that should pull that chain. It is key to identify what these customers need, and the people who are going to buy products that are coming out of those are you. are you doing the research to find out what is needed out there from a marketing point of view? And I've also noticed in Zimbabwe recently, our boards, we have a lawyer, we have an accountant, we have a production person, but we forget commercialization, and those people bring growth and continuity and sustainability to the business. I think those are some of the things that should be considered for these small coming up businesses to grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have the last one.
Afternoon. Afternoon. So mine is more of a complaint. Rather, I was unfortunate. But then the process of registering my companies, it has seemed like the process has been commercialized. Like most of the registering things are done by companies that are offered to register companies for you, and it's very difficult for an individual to register your company going through the processes as an individual, of which that's the only time we can get to know about these laws that will govern our company. So I think they should make the process of registering the company more interactive, that the person who is actually registering the company is involved at every stage.
Thank you. I will allow our esteemed panelists to respond. I would like to start with our guest of honor to respond.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the process is not difficult. It's fairly simple, and it's even simpler now. Starting from, I think, 1 June, we introduced a new system of registration where you apply online. And there was a delay, I know, especially first week of June, where we had to migrate data from one system to another. And we do have a new system which is going through pilot run, and we believe it benchmarks with another system. So in the event that you choose to use a consultant, then you have to meet consultant fees. We don't have a control over that. But if you do choose to do your own applications, it's very possible that as an individual you can go onto the portal, which is cpiz.gov.zw, and you start the process of registration. It's very interactive. It will ask you questions, you respond to those questions, and you get a response within a day of your name search application. And as of last week, we are starting to receive memorandum and articles online, also in the pilot run, because we are testing the system. But this is a live environment. We are registering actual companies. And, but perhaps, I don't know when you attempt it. I can have a dialogue with you. But if it is this year, this second half of this year, definitely the experience is different. But having said that, all startups generally, this might be also maybe advice to the VC to say that when we deal with other institutions that are fairly organized, we deal with them as partners, which means if something is coming from UZ, specifically maybe, let's say, spin-offs from your innovation, it comes with that kind of recommendation, and we create a desk for that. We've done it with the Ministry of Youth, we've done it with other institutions like Women's Affairs, where we create a specific desk to deal with these batches that are coming in specifically because they've been recommended by you. So if your companies are coming in, you can avoid these consultants fees if you have skilled people who can do it. I don't know if Prof is skilled enough to that extent, but I think you could have a dialogue with him, and he could then organize these startups, and we can get them as batches so that we examine one document and we are confident with the 99.
You once said that, but I'm yet to check if he is still committed. Right, that's on the lighter note. I will ask you, Honorable Minister Mugula, to respond.
Thank you. I think there are two that are relevant to me. The one is, hello? It's working?
Yeah.
I'm very loud. I don't know whether the technology will have voice. But there are two streams, there are three streams that go into the innovation arm. I'm answering the point. One, there is faculty-based pipeline, which means those students that are in stream, that are graduating, or they are not graduating, but they have got very nice innovation, which maybe they display during the innovation week and they are admitted into the innovation program. Right? That is faculty-based. Or it can be a professor or a lecturer or any other member of staff who has an interesting idea and it can graduate into the innovation hub. That's pipeline number one. Pipeline number two is any other person that is displayed and has an innovation from the public, from the street or from their home. They can come to the innovation hub and also be admitted into the innovation program. Number three, there is an industry which has got interest in making sure that they can sponsor an innovation and they want it to be done by a university, and that stream can be people like here at UZ. There were some people who were being sponsored by Ministry of ICT, for example, or Hotel One, right? Then they can come into the innovation program, which is an industry-demanded innovation. So these are the three streams. So I think everybody in this country falls into one or more of these streams. So in short, it doesn't matter which innovation hub it is. The innovation hub belongs to, it's a foreign affairs division of a university. It can take people that are in faculty, outside of faculty. I know that in cohort 2, we even have people in this cohort that we are sponsoring, including our non-comedian called Carl Joshua Nunu. I know, I've seen his name in the cohort that is coming now, in here. We are sponsoring him. What is the interest of government? I like what the Professor Malduk said. What is the interest of government? The interest of government in sponsoring these people is so that these people can form companies that are profitable, so that we can tax them. And then be able to feed the population of this country, so that we can have a loyal, productive private sector. So it's in our interest to make sure that Zimbabweans are productive. I think it's a very noble reason. My students say, for example, we want grants at university. We have a very small tax base, so it is impossible to give you the grants that you require. So if we grow enough companies in this country, you will come to this university and pay out for free because we have so much money. But somebody has to work first in order to get that money. And we have to create a method of creating an industry in this country. This is a method from our intelligent people. Because so no production is I think it's very clear. We have to have a method of producing an industry. Because people cannot say, we'll create employment, we'll do this, we'll give you jobs from where? What is your method? This is our method. My woman. So you are free to come to the University of Zimbabwe Innovation Hub if the innovation process at UZ admits that it's an innovation, and then we can sponsor you. Doesn't matter. All these institutions are ours anyway. Because some people say, I come from Zix, I come from UZ, but when I get the money out of the ministry, it's coming from one pipeline. So don't tribalize yourselves. Huh? tribe, who said tribe, this tribe. To me, I just see people trying to work for their capital. Number two, relationship between education 5.0 and the custom. I think I've talked about design thinking. You don't do a thing that is not demanding. First of all, when I say design thinking, what do our people want? Then what is your education doing? And then what is the kind of industry that you are producing? Everything must begin from what does Zimbabwe need. All these people that you see here require food, they require water, they require innovation, which also is really different. So, based on that, you can innovate, and then they are willing to pay for it because they need it. So there's no innovation that is done for nothing. Like some people say, I have this interesting thing. Why is it interesting? The child. So these are the things that are inherent in education for themselves. I think I've answered this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think first Vice Chancellor to confirm with our expertise, denials, and so forth. So the Faculty of Law will be able to do that and discuss it in a chief registrar, and he has explained exactly what they expect, and we would be able to do that, meaning that we will certify the faculty. So we will discuss it, and then we have that expertise, like Faculty of Law.
Now to industrialize.
So, you know, was about to okay, that's fine. Then my only question there was going to be can a law it unfair, comply, then also did. Answer actually very clear. Law, you comply first, also complain. Later, I couldn't have any choice. Comply, the law was a complaint, and later complain. I was try to say, I told Nagana negotiation. The reason I should just do a bit aid there, the person has asked because you become monastery. Chile unfair to you may not be unfair to others. So whenever you see a rule, then normally it's because there are some people who think it's fair. But it's a concept. So if we start saying, this is unfair, I will not comply. This is fair. Though one of the legal implications, and I like the topic, the legal implications, let us know there will be laws in place that we may not like. There will be laws in place that we will be convinced that they are against my interest. But unfortunately, if you have to choose between complying and not complying, you comply, and then you complain less. In other words, you facilitate the processes by changing the law. I think that's my question.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed guest of honor, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, panelists, our esteemed audience, we come to the end of our dialogue. I know this should be of interest to continue. We are always like that, but we have to cut it now. I will hand back to the Director of Ceremony to get us closed, and so that we move forward. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for our panelists, our lead discussants, Honorable Minister, our facilitator, our Vice Chancellor, our guest of honor, panelists. We truly appreciate you. This dialogue reminded me of days when we were little boys. The first time we encountered inflated soccer balls. There are times when we would play soccer through lunch and sometimes through dinner, forgetting about food, just because soccer was exciting. Now it's way past 2, way past lunch, and we were all engaged. Another round of applause to our. Thank you so much. Very salient issues discussed. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite Professor Florence Mtapanengwe, the Executive Director Research and Innovation to come and present our token of appreciation to the guest of honor. Vice Chancellor, if you could come forward with our guest of honor for a small presentation in honor of our guest of honor. Oh, yes, please, Honorable Minister, sir. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Vice Chancellor, and our guest of honor. Last but not least is the lady I revere quite a lot, very excellent in terms of summarizing issues, very astute, simple but very deep, and that is none other than our Vice Chair of Council, who is coming through to give us a vote of thanks. Let's put our hands together as she comes through.
Thank you very much, Director. Even is a very task, because I think everything that needs to be said has been said. Perhaps I'll start by recognizing our host, Professor Dr. Paul Mafumu, our Vice Chancellor, the Honorable Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology, Professor Dr. Mulvira, and most important of all, our guest of honor, Madam Permanent Secretary, standing in for our Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, Deputy Minister of Information, and Vice Chancellors from other universities, university staff, deans, members of the Senate, chairpersons of departments, and ladies and gentlemen, I think all the protocols have been said before. Fellow councillors here present, on behalf of the University of Zimbabwe Council, I am very honored, I'm really honored to stand before you as I give this vote of thanks. First, I want to thank the institutions, young and seasoned researchers, the faculties, innovators, and our partners for putting up a good showcase. Because we wouldn't be here if there was no work done. Thank you for the brilliant work. Thank you for all these goods and services that you are producing. And thank you for making this a very good morning for all of us. I'm delighted to interface between academia and industry and commerce in development. And this shows the relevance of our higher education in feeding industry. I think a question was asked to say, do we have a market? Why are we doing this? And I think the question in the morning was asked by the Honorable Minister, why are you doing what you are doing? If we don't know those answers, then it means we have to step back, because it means we are irrelevant. What I like about Education 5.1 is that it's bringing relevance, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for that. So, in thanking people, from what is written here, I have to thank our guest of honor first. And I don't want to just thank you because you're a guest of honor. Thank you for your insights and for this brilliant idea of linking the university. It's critical for this partnership. You can see the demand for this service. And thank you, really for taking time. I know you had an appointment for 2 o'clock. And thank you for sharing with us what is happening at the global arena, to say that intellectual property and traditional knowledge, they are now on the global platform to discuss. And we shouldn't be left behind. I think gone are the days when we're having our, especially our medicines being stolen. I won't go into that. I know you already know the billions of dollars we have lost from our traditional healers, and because of patenting. So I thank you for establishing that partnership. And again, I come back to our honorable minister. You know, you always untake 5 points. Each time is different. And each time I think, now I understand it, but I never understand it. When you are here in the podium, I start to say, do I really know what he's talking about? Thank you very much for establishing the ecosystem and all these linkages, which are so pertinent, which are so important. And the serious stuff, the strategies of the looter and the owner, and the creation of new wealth, and the governance and this legal context, it's so important in the value chain. And last, in terms of people who are up here, we want to thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Paul Mafumo, for this culture of kuziwa kugona mukuita, doing, because if people were not doing, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much. But I can't thank him, he's just one person. There's the rest of the university staff, from the very highest to the, I think the new entries and the staff and everything, the machinery, the whole university machinery, which is making this possible, which is responding to 5.0, because you can have a policy which is sitting on the shelves, but you have a policy which is getting fruit, which is producing, which is delivering. What you expected is another thing, but for that to happen, you need people. And I thank all the people here. And thank you, choir. It was brilliant. Ni Mangoromera. Thank you. You are putting it into context so that it's very simple, a simple message which is not complicated from up here. Thank you very much. And I think the entertainment group again, we enjoyed it. Thank you. It makes this a very, and lastly, I want to thank the high-level dialogue. It's important to dialogue, and thank you for sitting on the platform. Because you may want to dialogue, but if you don't have the platform, then it means you cannot discuss. It means things cannot be taken from one level to the next level. So thank you very much, and I wish we could go on, but I know that these people, they've really sacrificed their time from the offices there. You guys, you are demanding their services. They have to be there, and they have to produce. Thank you.
That is my Vice Chair of Council. True to her billing. Let's put our hands together one more time. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are led very well. We appreciate you, ma'am. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our morning session. This is not the end of the day. I am going to give us 40 minutes for lunch. I want us to all stand up as we allow Professor Mtamanengwe to lead the high table for lunch. I'll give you instructions when our elders are out. Let's all stand to our feet and allow our high table to take the lead. We can go ahead and take our seats. So this is what is going to happen. I want you to remain seated. I will go out to have lunch. When I'm done, I'll come back and give you further instructions. Is that a bad deal? Right.
you know, for our deans and our facilitators, I'm sure you guys know where you have had your lunch. You know, since Monday. I know there's quite a number of people who joined us today who don't know where they're going to have lunch. There is going to be people, you know, by the exits or exit doors. They will be giving us tickets, and that ticket will tell you where to go. There are different feeding points. We have the senior common room, and we also have the SU building. So you can either use the, you know, back